Good morning, Yonkers Voice. Once again, we're here with Mike Khader,
Hello, everyone.
Council President, and we're going to talk about the things that he has already started working on it. We all know and understand that things don't happen immediately. It's a process, okay? And the government is known for the slow moving. So, Mike, first of all, good morning, and thank you for talking to me.
Absolutely. Thank you. Absolutely, Ben.
good.
Thank you for having us. Hello, Yonkers Voice community. It's great to be and talk to you again.
So, Mike, I remember, the election time, while you were running, you were going to open the windows for the sunshine to disinfect. How is it going?
Well, as you could see, all the windows are open, and it's been going great. One of our first meetings, we introduced a whistleblower law. The purpose of the law is to have anyone, employees or residents, to come forward with actionable information to inform us about any fraud, abuse, or waste. That law is in committee right now, and it's being discussed, and we're hoping that, once it goes through the legislative process, that, we're expecting that it will pass and the mayor will sign it.
Now, this law is in connection with City Hall, just whistleblowers within the City Hall, or it's something that covers the whole city?
It concerns city government, taxpayer dollars. That's where, that's what this encompasses. If anyone has any information, actionable information, and what I mean by that is something we could work off. We're going to have an auditor, we're going to have investigators, and we're going to look at that to make sure that, the taxpayers' dollars know where their dollars are being spent, and there's no fraud, abuse, or waste.
Now, by applying or passing this law, is that an implication that maybe there was some kind of people were afraid in the past to come forward with information in regards to waste, corruption, illegalities within the City Hall?
Well, I have, and you don't want to say City Hall. I'm going to refer to city government.
City government,
City government as a whole. What I generally feel is that there are people that may have information that are a little hesitant to come forward. So what this is to do is to give them a veil, is to give them some protections. Come out of the shadows. Let's talk. Tell us the information that you have. That's the purpose. My goal, Ben, is to connect city government back with the residents. That, and another example, not just a whistleblower, is this past Tuesday at a city council meeting, we passed a resolution that we're going to start going Facebook Live. Obviously, as you know, where our city council meetings are on TV, on the City Hall Access channel, but there's a large portion that may not have cable or don't want to watch TV, 7 o'clock at night. So with iPhones now and digital access, our city council meetings will be Facebook Live. And that's another first in the city of Yonkers. And I'm proud that I sponsored that, and I'm proud that it passed. This is another example of transparency and shedding sunlight on government operations.
That's definitely a plus, because most people nowadays are more connected with Facebook, YouTube, than actually cable vision. I'm one of those. I turn my cable vision off and I'm always on Facebook, and because that's where I get my news. Now, when you were running, you also spoke a lot about Firehouse, one right across the street from you, and you got support from the unions. How is that going?
Well, that's going great. There was a press conference, I believe, in December, and there are plans, and is going out to bid, and we're gonna, once the bid process is done, we're gonna make sure that it keeps on going forward. What this has to be is, governance is, it's fluid. You just can't check off the box and move away to the next issue. You always have to circle back to make sure that there's always a follow-through. And that's the whole goal here. So at the same time, while I'm doing community outreach throughout the city of Yonkers, we're all still governing. We're passing resolutions. We're passing laws. So we're wearing many hats at the same time. The ultimate goal is that this is going to be an active city council president's office, the first of its kind, and we're also going to connect. I want people to know, if you're in Northeast or Southwest, this office is yours.
Now, Mike, Mr. Barry McGooey once said, Mary.
Yes, yes.
He once said that it took longer to build the Whitestone Bridge, the Mayo Cuomo Bridge,
Correct.
than actually to build this new firehouse. What's the delay? Now that you are the council president, what do you think it was the delay or the slowness from, to get this going?
You know, if I could only answer that by speculating, and I don't want to speculate to you or your audience. What I could say is that building this firehouse will be a priority, and there will be a process. We got to secure funding. Building the firehouse that's accessible, they're talking over $16 million. So going forward, we'll make sure that it stays on track and we get the time plan. Like I just said briefly, it's out to bid, and we're going to follow the process. Any delays in the past or why something happened, I can't comment on, and if I do, it's just pure speculation.
Do you have a time window?
Well, I do believe the bid ends in sometime in May, and then once we get that bid, we'll know how to proceed. And of course, we always have to discuss, to secure the money to build that.
Now, talk about transparency.
Yes.
You have something coming up, I believe, around February 24, 26.
Yeah, 26.
You want to tell my audience about this and how can they participate, what they need to know about this?
Sure. Thank you, Ben. As I said, what we're doing is holding town hall community meetings all throughout the city of Yonkers. And our first one will be right here on Park Hill Avenue at the Rousseau Post. And I invite everyone to come out there. And we're going to have department heads and city officials there. I'll have my staff there. There'll be local council people there. And we want to hear. We want to hear. I do have I do understand, as you know, in that neighborhood, crime is always an issue. Trash is always an issue. We clearly know there's a rat infestation issue. So we're gonna discuss these issues, and we're gonna discuss problems. I'm in the process to see perhaps we could get some kind of pest mitigation, or maybe we need better sanitation. And when I say by sanitation, the receptacles. We have to start putting accountability on the property owners also. So it's going to be a collaborative team effort, and this office wants to be an advocate for the tenants to make sure that they live in clean sanitary conditions. And anything that the city government can do to push that forward, I will be championing that effort.
Well, years ago, they used to collect garbage 3 times a week. They've reduced that to twice a week. Would probably, put another day would help with the rats infestation and keeping the cities of Yonkers a little cleaner?
Well, that's something that you and I have discussed, and the reality is, in Southwest Yonkers, this is where, this is the densest part of the city. This is where most of the apartment buildings are. So clearly, if you have more people, more tenants, more apartments, you're going to bring in more trash. We're trying to work something out with the budgeting, where perhaps in certain neighborhoods we can have garbage 3 days a week. It'll reduce, just the visual eyesore of seeing big commercial garbage and trash. But there's also a budget ramification. What you always have to remember, anything that we do costs money, and it has to make business sense, and it has to also benefit the residents.
Now, Mike, since you took office, what has been your difficulties? Any friction? Or is everything running smooth? Is this a fine-tuned administration, or there is difficulties that you're fighting?
Well, no, there's always difficulties, because many times what I see is, certain neighborhoods may have different priorities. I was very blessed and fortunate, that I ran citywide, and, I did, and we were fortunate with our result, and I'm here. So it's always a balance. Obviously, we have a Democratic majority, we have a Republican minority, so there's always a balancing act where you want to make sure that everyone is heard and every voice is understood. Then, we're dealing with the, with the mayor, and things are going pleasantly well. We've made a commitment to each other to collaborate together, to work together. There is a checks and balances. So it's always not necessarily difficulty. It's always balancing, meeting of the minds. No one's ever going to be right 100% of the time, including me, and no one's going to be wrong 100% of the time, including me. But if the benchmark that we set for ourselves is, how does this benefit the residents? How does this benefit students? How does this benefit the seniors? If we set that as our goal, our expectations, I think positive things will be coming. Just last week, we had a trades fair at the Riverfront Library. I called up my many friends in labor, and I said, can you please come out? and we had 7 or 8 local representatives, and it was a great turnout. And this is part of the process to collaborate together. You know, government can't solve your problems, but I generally believe that government could be a facilitator to bring solutions to the table. And I was very thankful for that. My friends and you know, all the local laborers came out and spoke to some students and even adults. You know, as we know, it's a national epidemic. We have you know, children are dying. Just last week, 3 or 4 children in New York City died. I know that in Yonkers public schools, you know, they're sending students home on a daily basis. When we recognize this, I had my office contact St. Joseph's Hospital right down the street, and they were accommodating, and they recognized the importance of community collaboration. And we said, you know, let's set up a time and let's give free flu vaccines to whoever comes in. And I always thank President Michael Spicer for accommodating, and the nurse practitioners. We gave out over 30 flu shots that afternoon. And you know what, Ben? That's 30 people that would not have had it if it wasn't an initiative coming out of this office.
Now, you mentioned schools and students. We've been getting a lot of emails on Yonkers Voice complaining about the quality of the lunch and food in the schools. I don't know if this is something that you get involved at your level, but if you do, what do you have to tell to those parents who are concerned with the quality of the meals in the school?
Well, there's a lot of issues that are going on with the Board of Education. And as we're establishing a relationship, I was just with the president of the school board and yesterday, and I was with the superintendent on Monday. We were up in Albany rallying for more money, and we had candid conversations with representatives from the state budget office. There are many problems that we have, but what we have to focus on is the basic concept of a sound fundamental education. When you have a sound basic fundamental education, that's what's going to open up doors for upward mobility. You know, we're very proud that this school, I believe it's 86% graduation rate. And that's phenomenal for a big city. You know, we want to improve on that. We want to make sure that these graduates have opportunities after they receive their high school diploma. So, you know, do I know the actual information of what they're serving for lunch? No. But is there room for improvement? Absolutely. My goal right now is making sure that we have guidance counselors, that we do have gym coaches, that they do have fundamental classrooms. We have students right now that are taking classes in utility closets without air conditioning, without windows. That's my priority right now.
Well, Mike, we received the video the other day. I don't want to mention the school or the people involved, but we received the video of actually the cafeteria in one of the schools where kids were sitting down and eating. And you could see roaches all over the place, actually crawling on the tables where the kids were eating. This is a matter of hygiene and quality. Education is important, grades are important, but how the hygiene in the schools are also important. Is there any kind of a body that investigates or checks the school inspection, see about the hygiene within the school?
Well, yes, within the Board of Education, and I think people understand, the City of Yonkers budget funds the Board of Education, and, you know, the Board of Trustees set the education policy. But, you know, I do know that there is a building and grounds office, and they deal with such things. Please, anyone has any issues, email our office, and we'll forward it, and we will follow up. I do want to know about that school, and don't be surprised that I go visit it personally. You know, dignity is a human right. It's a fundamental right. We got to make sure that all our children feel safe and appreciated in their classrooms. We have to give them all resources and opportunities to succeed. I do want to point out that you know, our Mayor Spano, created this authority to rebuild our schools. And reality is we have schools that are over 100 years old in this city, and, you know, we have schools that are better in third world countries. I've been in war zones where educational buildings are in better condition. So where we are now, it's not perfect, it's not ideal, but I could tell people that we have a committed city council and a determined city council president that's going to make education a priority. The culture of Yonkers wasn't created overnight, Ben, and that culture is not going to change in 6 weeks. I can't do it alone. I'm grateful that I'm working well with our city council. You know, I'm working great with our mayor, but it has to be a community effort. When we went up to Albany on Monday, we had 2 busloads. But you know what? I want 3 busloads. And I'm planning to go up again to Albany, you know, in March. And as I said, it's not for a photo op. It's to have meaningful, candid discussions with our state legislator. You know, the city of Yonkers is a growing city. We have about 3,000 to 4,000 apartments coming in the next few years. As we sit here today, we are about 4,000 students above capacity in our schools. This is an emergency that must be addressed, and you need a city council president that's going to address those issues. Can I solve things overnight? Absolutely not. But you're going to have a determined and committed city council president that will work and drive up to Albany and have the frank discussions.
So Mike, can you tell our audience if they need to reach out to you? Because I remember you telling that your doors were open, we want to be open to our community. If they need to reach out to you to file a complaint, ask you a question, how can they get in touch with you? Do you have a general number that you can give out?
Absolutely. It's 914-377-6060. I also have email councilpresident@yonkersny.gov. I have a full staff here that they pick up the call, you know, between normal business hours, and we're very responsive. You know, Ben, don't be surprised when people call. I pick up the phone. I could give a couple examples where I'm sitting at my desk, the phone rings, and I say, Council President's office, and they were like, Mike Khader. I was like, speaking. They didn't believe it.
They're surprised.
Yeah, they were surprised. Oh, you pick up your own phone call? Yeah, if it's right there, because we have a staff that's working. I tell my staff, listen, we're going to govern in the community. We're going to govern in the streets. We're not going to be behind desks and computer screens governing, because the best way that we could increase that enrollment, we could increase that involvement, is by being with the people.
Okay, now to end this, because I know that you have a business schedule, there is a lot of talk going on about somebody who works for you, okay? And we need to address this. We need to give an answer, so let people know. I believe her name is Aida.
Yeah. Oh, you're referring. You know, Ben, as you know, this country is great, and we have, freedom of the press and free speech. There's nothing to talk about. I hired one of the best and most qualified people that has experience working in the assembly in Albany, that has experience working in city government. There is absolutely no one better that knows how to navigate the halls in this city hall better. And many of the great things that we're doing are because of her experience and knowing how to navigate city government waters. It's a non-story. Let's talk about the great things that we're doing.
It might be a non-story for you, Mike, but to other people out there, it might be a story. Okay. So just how long she's been working within the walls of the City Hall?
She's been in City Hall since 2011, and then prior to that, she worked in Albany in the Assembly office, and she's initiative. She's on top of things. She was leading with the whole resolution that we passed prior to the tragedy about gun violence. You know, my chief of staff is forward thinking. She has the experience, she has the credibility, she has the knowledge to bring our initiatives and our agenda forward. If people are being critical, they're probably being critical of me. Unfortunately, what people don't realize, Ben, is the campaign is over, and now it's time to govern.
I'm with you. And if that was not a problem for all these years before you were elected, why is it a problem now?
It's, again, people are trying to distract from the issues, Ben. They don't want to talk about, like I said, our transparency issues or that great gun legislation that we just passed. They want to talk about issues that are going to distract us from the progress and the good things that we want to do in this office.
Mike, gun legislation is a very important thing. It affects everyone. And bullets have no names. They can hit anyone, you driving by, me driving by, a child, whatever. Tell us about this gun legislation.
Well, it's not it's a resolution. That this city council passed. It was in committee. This is a resolution that we're sending up to Congress to look at gun violence and perhaps even the mental health epidemic that is perhaps fueling the gun violence. What's important to know is that this is an office that's forward thinking, and we think outside the box. We're going to bring new ideas. I'm proud to say that this resolution was passed last month. It's unfortunate that this tragedy that just happened in Florida, and I won't politicize it, but just also know that I have children in schools. And every day when I drop them off, I look forward to seeing them in the evening. And this is something that shouldn't happen. As I said earlier, quality education also includes a fundamental to be safe. And this is something that needs to happen. And this is a city council that thought that way and passed this resolution. And it's on its way to Washington prior to this tragedy. So this is not an attempt to politicize a tragedy. This is an example of how this office thinks forward and brings new ideas.
Now, Mike, just to end this interview, let's just touch on crime, about crime in Yonkers. Is crime going up or is crime going down?
Okay.
Or is crime being reclassified? What is it?
Okay, the data point, I actually, I speak to our law enforcement and our chiefs, and I personally attend pretty much many of the community council precinct meetings. There are 4 of them throughout the city, and if I'm unable to attend, I usually send a representative. I'm comfortable to say, yeah, violent crime is down in the city, and that's because of the great work of law enforcement. But what I do see is a rise in the quality of life complaints. And that doesn't minimize the crime. It just says that we do overall have a safe city, and that, where we don't have shootouts in the middle of the street. But that does not mean that we must let down. We must continue to address these quality of life crimes, the petty crimes, and with this collaboration with the police department and with my initiative to have community policing, I think that we're only going to trend in the right direction.
What about police officers on the street? Is any money coming in to hire more officers? Because it's about 30 or 40 in each shift, not counting detectives and other personnel. Talk about patrol officers. Any money coming in that will hire more police officers?
Well, that's something that we're going to discuss. Our budget process, right now Albany is discussing the budget process, and then what Albany does will ultimately affect our city budget. But again, when you're talking about more officers, that goes back to what I was saying before. What we need is not a cop riding in a car. We need the foot patrol. I would love to see a normal foot patrol in Getty Square, or perhaps on Riverdale Avenue, or on Warburton Avenue, or maybe up on South Broadway. I feel that it's not just more cops. I believe you need the community engagement, because more cops and nothing else is going to lead to more arrests. And that's not going to solve the issue. That there has to be a collaboration from community, civic leaders, and the police department. So I think it's not just you put a square peg in a hole and that solves the problem. It's collaboratively.
Now, Commissioner Gardner has been talking about this 5th precinct in Yonkers. Will this really help? Because for what I understand, a 5th precinct does not necessarily imply more officers, but removing officers from one place and put them on another place. How will that help the city?
Well, you know what? I've heard two schools of thoughts. If you build a 5th, and we all know where the target area is. It's a particular sector between the 3rd and the 4th precinct. And the data suggests that that's where most of the service calls go. So if you're just going to spread resources from the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd to create a 5th precinct, all it does is just create extra cost. I'm not sure if that's the solution. Rather, if we know where the trouble spots are and if we know where the location where most of the service calls are, perhaps we should put extra resources there without diminishing or reducing services in other sectors of the city. But just to have a 5th precinct alone and not increasing the staffing to manage that, I'm not convinced that's the right solution. But it's a conversation worth discussing. One thing, Ben, that I'm proud to say is you never stop learning, and I'm always willing to be shown the better path.
Now this is really the last question.
Okay.
Immigration. Is Yonkers a sanctuary city or it's not?
Okay. From what I've been told, again, from the police department does not ask about their immigration status, and that is something that I support. I believe, you used the term sanctuary city, and I think that's a red herring. It sparks fear. And what we have to make sure, and I don't care what somebody's immigration status is, I don't want criminals, I don't want dangerous criminals on the street. But it's important that if somebody has a crime to report or is a victim of a crime, that they could call our police department and they're gonna be treated with respect and dignity that they deserve. That's my most important concern. We need to bring the people that live in the city of Yonkers out of the shadows, report crime, tell us what's going on, because many times they have the information that our police and law enforcement need to solve these issues.
And that in turn will help saving lives.
It saves lives, it'll address the quality of life issues.
Mike, thank you very much for your time always. We
Thank you.
appreciate talking to us and to our audience at Yonkers
Absolutely. It's always a pleasure seeing you, Ben. It's always a pleasure to talk to the Yonkers Voice audience, and I look forward to seeing you around and seeing you at our many outreach efforts. Thank you,
Thank you
Yonkers
very
Voice.
much.
Thank you, Ben.
Guys, stay tuned for more. We will have another interview coming up shortly. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Peace out.